the Hollywood team, the LA Rams, the exact opposite of the way the Bengals have done it.
Yeah, I talked to Les Snead about their draft picks a year ago. This is a LA Rams franchise that hasn't had a number one draft pick since 2016 when they took Jared Goff. And then remember, they started giving them away, right, because they wanted Jalen Ramsey. And obviously they drafted Aaron Donald years ago, but they gave up 2 firsts for Jalen Ramsey. They gave up a first in order to secure Brandon Cooks because they needed that type of receiver that helped them get to the NFC title game and ultimately the Super Bowl those years ago. And now they've given up their first-round picks in order to secure Matthew Stafford. All those things have turned out well, but Les Snead talked about those first-round draft picks and how they're like new cars, and then you drive them off the lot. Mm-hmm. And what happens to a new car once you drive it off the lot? It depreciates. And so, those first-round picks, you attach that first-round pick tag to somebody, but what happens if they don't play like that first-round pick? Yeah. And listen, the hit rate on first-round picks, especially where the Rams are going to be drafting, at best it's 50-50. Mm-hmm. At best, if you're picking in the 20s, that guy may not be the guy that Jalen Ramsey ultimately becomes. So that's what they have decided to do here in L.A., where they say, okay, we're going to go after the Jalen Ramseys. We're going to go after the Matthew Staffords because we know exactly who those guys are. But that also means that you better hit on those 5th and 6th rounders, because those guys, they're going to be just special teamers. They're going to have to contribute early on. And a team that's built in a traditional and normal way, you can have that 5th or 6th rounder who, okay, that's just your special teams gunner on punt team. Yep. That can't be the case here. That needs to be the safety who can actually step up and come down and hit somebody in the box. And so that's where I have been most impressed by this Rams team. And Chris, you asked the question earlier, if this is replicable, like if what the Bengals can do, if other teams can do it. The Rams, I would not encourage another team to do what the Rams do, because they have 4 guys who count $20 million against the cap. You got Leonard Floyd, you got Matthew Stafford, Aaron Donald, and Jalen Ramsey. You can't do that.
Exactly, and I believe these 2 organizations, they have been the outliers when it comes to how they got to this point. And for the Rams, the thing that I like about the Rams, they've been consistent in their strategy. We don't care anything about picks. We don't care anything about first rounders, second rounders. We believe if we can make a move to get a guy that's already established and experienced in the National Football League, he will be a better player than whoever it is we could potentially draft when our time comes. And they always believe and have the mentality that we will be drafting towards the back end of the first round. So if we go get a guy in the back end and can go get a guy like Jalen Ramsey, the likelihood of that player becoming who Jalen Ramsey is already who he is not likely. So that's what they've been doing. But the window of opportunity is not as big as it is for Cincinnati because of the cap issues, because of the money, the high-priced players they have. So it's imperative for them to cash in right now, because you don't know exactly how this team will look in the next 3 or 4 years.
They were underdogs in the last Super Bowl, lost to Tom Brady and the New England Patriots. That roster, though, is almost completely turned over since then. I mean, there aren't that many players from that team. I think it's close to 90% of the roster is different from that team. So it's not like, some have experience, but not many.
That's right. But they did want to make sure that the guys that they brought on via free agency, that they did have that experience, right? Von Miller has been there, done that as Super Bowl MVP. Odell Beckham Jr., having played in the New York franchise in that market, understands what big games are, right? Constantly in the NFC East. You bring on a vet like Eric Weddle, who was on the couch, 20 days ago, and is now about to have the defensive play calls in his helmet. You get those guys who maybe they have been there and excelled in that moment at the biggest stage, like Von Miller, or guys who the moment will not be too big for them. But that's what you do when you say that the Rams are going all in, B-Mac. They are going all in, saying, listen, we're going to get the guys who know about that moment because we believe that we're going to be at that moment. And if you're not, it is an absolute failure.
And kudos to Sean McVay, because all the different personalities they've brought into this organization that have been established, well respected, he's been able to keep everybody under one accord to be focused and dialed in and ultimately trying to hoist a sticky Lombardi. They've done a great job in minimizing any distractions. Think about some of the quote-unquote distractions that were tied to Odell Beckham when he was in Cleveland. We haven't heard anything.
Not a single post from his dad.
Not a single. Dad is happy. He's out in La La Land. Odell is happy. But the way they've been able to get different personalities, because sometimes players can be a bit egocentric when they have established themselves in the National Football League. But when these guys come in, they buy into the system. Think about Sonny Michel. He was a former first rounder and hasn't complained about opportunities or the lack thereof. But when he's in the lineup, he's doing whatever he needs to do. Think about Henderson. Think about Cam Akers, who came off the shelf and did whatever they needed him to do, and he did it with a smile on his face. That's a big-time reason why this team is currently here, because they have guys that have bought into the system, and they're putting the team first and foremost before putting themselves first.
And they're also playing for Robert Woods, one of those, they have so many weapons, you know, and Robert Woods, one of the biggest weapons, injured midway through the season. They really want to get him a ring. Jonathan Jones, Bryant McFadden, Chris Hassel going to be back with you in just a moment here as our coverage continues of the Super Bowl. Make sure to check out Inside the NFL Tuesday, 9:30 Eastern Time. New episode exclusively on Paramount Plus.
Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis, no yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.